At a large wooden desk cluttered with stacks of documents, a young man sits hunched over his work. "Damn it," he mutters, expressing his frustration with being stuck with paperwork in a world defined by swords and magic. His grip tightens on the quill, his face contorted in annoyance. He is Ragnar Brave, a frontier noble, and he cannot believe that even here, he is hounded by the inefficiency of endless paperwork. Meanwhile, outside the study, an older butler named Seabass stands with a somber expression. He delivers a grim report to the person on the other side of the door. Most of the people in the mansion have died in battle. Seabass then enters the room to find Ragnar looking up at him, pleading for help. The butler remains unmoved, stating that Ragnar has come at a good time, but this burden is now the responsibility of the new lord. Ragnar's plea is met with the cold weight of duty. This heavy responsibility was thrust upon him because of the nature of his inheritance, the Brave territory. It is a harsh frontier land, constantly besieged by monsters and embroiled in skirmishes with neighboring countries. A place so perilous it is known as the land to be abandoned by other nobles. Ragnar's family, however, was different. He recalls someone once expressing surprise that anyone in his family could handle paperwork, as his father and older brothers were all formidable warriors. This was because, as the third son of the noble family, he was subjected to a brutal education from a young age. From the age of 3, he was drilled to kill monsters and enemy soldiers, facing down creatures like orcs. But despite this harsh training and a family of warriors, tragedy struck. A desolate battlefield, littered with broken swords and tattered banners, serves as a grim reminder that his entire family perished in the war just 1 month ago. As the only one who survived, he was suddenly tasked with inheriting the entire frontier territory. He sits alone, the vast, snowy landscape outside the window reflecting the cold weight of his new position. He slams his fist on the desk, scattering the documents he so despises. He shouts in frustration, lamenting that as the third son, he had planned to live freely as an adventurer. At this rate, he'd rather be diving into dungeons than dealing with this. The Brave territory is a land of contradictions. It possesses abundant natural resources and a wealth of monster materials, allowing businesses that cater to adventurers and wanderers to thrive. However, this prosperity is fragile. Any attempt to cultivate fields for self-sufficiency is met with fire from enemy nations, and developing the mountain ranges only invites monsters to wreak havoc. This precarious situation was why the previous heir had resolved to attend the academy in the royal capital. It was his duty to gain the favor of other nobles and secure their support for the territory. A much younger Ragnar had watched him, wondering if he could ever do the same. The memory did little to comfort him now. Ragnar argued that his family specialized in training, not diplomacy, and asked if he could simply refuse to enroll. Seabass's reply was firm. That would not do. His frustration mounted, but Seabass interrupted his thoughts. The butler, with a polite but firm demeanor, announced he had something important to discuss. Ragnar sighed, asking what was this time. The butler's voice was low and serious. He informed the young master that this matter concerned him directly. Then, he delivered the news. A marriage proposal had arrived. The words struck Ragnar with the force of a physical blow, his mind conjuring the image of a veiled bride. He stammered, questioning the suddenness of it all. Seabass remained unfazed, calmly explaining that for a lord, such proposals are not an unusual matter. His mind flashed back again, this time to his brother's own fiancées. He recalled how they had hated this frontier land and had never truly settled here. Seabass confirmed his memory with a grim addition. When he had gone to inform the women of his brother's death, they hadn't even attended the funeral. In fact, they had seemed rather relieved. The revelation left Ragnar speechless. He sat at his desk, the weight of the proposal pressing down on him. A thought crossed his mind. Should he just put an end to it? The quill pen in his hand snapped under the pressure. Seabass, ever observant, immediately chided him, stating that such a thought was unacceptable and that he understood exactly what the young master was considering. His initial despair gave way to a frantic rationalization. He buried his head in his hands, then shot up, a manic grin on his face. He declared that from now on, he would be living in a dormitory far away in the royal capital, only returning to manage the territory during long vacations. He concluded that he would be far too busy for such matters and instructed Seabass to decline the proposal on his behalf. The butler's response was swift and absolute. That is not possible. Seabass calmly offered him a spare pen. Seabass explained why refusal was out of the question. This marriage proposal, he revealed, came from the Oldwood ducal family, the very house that provides their territory with crucial weapons and food aid. The news struck Ragnar with the force of a physical blow. Struggling to grasp the political reality, he asked Seabass to confirm their noble title. The butler affirmed they held the rank of Earl, then clarified the hierarchy. Duke, followed by Marquis, then Earl. The implication was clear. A marriage with the ducal family was not something they could simply refuse. The name Oldwood echoed in his mind, sparking a flicker of recognition. A sudden, jarring memory surfaced. A violent encounter with an orc long ago. That blow, he now understood, had been the trigger that revived memories of a previous life. Memories he had somehow forgotten until this very moment. With the floodgates of memory opened, the truth crashed down upon him. He was reincarnated. He recalled his former life in a place called Japan, where he had spent time playing a particular game. The world he was in now was the world of that game. He remembered the game's premise clearly. It was an otome game, a romance story where a commoner protagonist attends an academy for nobles and falls in love with various potential suitors. But the story had a dark turn. By the end, the constant battles transformed the royal capital into a war zone. And he remembered the game's antagonist all too well, the villainess, Alicia Oldwood. As the daughter of the powerful Oldwood family and the prince's fiancée, she was a figure of impeccable appearance and unmatched talent. Recalling his time playing, he remembered his own frustration with her character, who invariably got in the way of the protagonist's story at every turn. Ragna Brave recalls what he knows of the villainess, Alicia Oldwood. While beautiful, her personality is described as the absolute worst. She is incredibly elitist and would show up with her entourage every day to insult the story's protagonist, telling her to know her place. He remembers that as the protagonist's relationship with the prince deepened, Alicia's harassment escalated, culminating in a duel over the prince. The result, however, was a crushing defeat for Alicia, who was immediately stripped of her engagement on the spot. As a consequence, Alicia took responsibility for her actions and was sent away to marry a frontier noble. As he pictures the scene, a horrifying thought strikes him. That frontier noble's house. It was his own family's house. The realization hits him with physical force, and he collapses face first onto his bed. He mutters into his pillow, concluding that this is the worst possible outcome. The thought of having to live with that noblewoman fills him with dread. His mind conjures a nightmarish vision of his future, a living hell of constant, daily verbal abuse from a sneering Alicia. His dark fantasy is interrupted. He is told that the lady is about to arrive, and the grim reality sets in. He will have to attend the academy with her. It is a future of nothing but despair. Pulling on his coat, he turns to Seabass, questioning the situation. He asks why a lady raised specifically for the crown prince would be sent to their house. Seabass offers a grim political analysis. It is likely a way to dispose of a nuisance and make an example of her, especially considering the high death rate in a Brave territory. He explains that for their very survival, everyone in the Brave family household, from the maids to the guards and the chef, works tirelessly to support the family. He walks alongside the young master through a long hall, reminding Ragna that he must also do his part. With a hint of weariness, Ragna agrees that he knows. As they stand before the rugged, mountainous landscape of the territory, Ragna's expression is tense, a bead of sweat on his brow. Meanwhile, the awaited guest arrives. Seabass bows respectfully, welcoming the lady and gesturing for her to follow him. She steps through the doorway, her gaze steady. A prominent, textured burn mark covers the left side of her face. As Seabass begins the formal introductions, Ragna recoils with a loud gasp, his eyes wide with shock at the sight of her. Her expression remains placid, though she notes to herself that he, too, has reacted to her face just like everyone else. He quickly tries to recover, stammering that it wasn't the burn that surprised him. He asks what happened to her, but quickly adds that she doesn't have to talk about it if she doesn't want to. He then smiles warmly, explaining that in the Brave territory, such injuries are actually quite common among the people. His unexpected kindness leaves her stunned, her eyes widening in disbelief. Ragna, however, internally assumes her burn is something she got during the duel he heard about, reflecting that soldiers and adventurers in this land are always covered in scars. His kind words hung in the air, but all she could think of was the mark on her face. It was, after all, a big scar, a scar that had always invited scorn. She remembered the whispers, the cruel satisfaction of others, noting how her beautiful face was ruined. They had said anyone who saw it would recoil, that it was a fitting mark for a life of shame. As the painful memory surfaced, Seabass's voice cut through, expressing his shock to Ragna. He couldn't believe that a duke's daughter like Lady Alicia had arrived without a single attendant. Unfazed, Alicia simply stated her intention to leave, prompting Ragna to call out her name in surprise. His call was met with a heavy silence that settled between them. Moments later, the carriage that brought her began its journey away from the estate. She stood before them with only a single piece of luggage beside her. The small carriage and the complete lack of attendance made her situation painfully clear. Her expression was one of complete resignation, as if she had given up on everything. It was the look of a captured soldier from an enemy nation, defeated and expecting the worst. He watched her, a profound realization dawning on him. This was not at all what he had expected. As he processed this, Seabass gestured for Lady Alicia to follow him inside. He had been so certain she would be outrageous and arrogant, a villainous laughing in the face of her circumstances. Instead of the monster he'd imagined, he saw only a defeated young woman. Stepping forward, he offered to show her to her room personally, catching her by surprise. She reached out, her hand gently touching his arm to stop him. She asked him to please wait a moment. Reacting to her touch, Ragna slams his fist into the wall just beside her head, the stone cracking under the force of the blow. He stares ahead with a cold intensity while Alicia remains impassive. She seems unfazed by the display, asking if she had some dust on her. She apologizes, explaining that her outfit is old. Ragna dismisses her concern, stating that his own place is far dustier, but she offers only a flat acknowledgement. He clenches his fist, her strange calm forcing him to reconsider the situation. His mind flashes back to the sight of her standing alone in the overgrown, neglected garden. His thoughts turn to the creatures he can perceive, demon bugs. He knows them as curses born from a person's grudge. A dark, insectoid being writhes in his palm. To be possessed by them is to be denied a decent life. He realizes Alicia must have been intensely hated, as he saw about 100 of them clinging to her. The number of demon bugs, he understands, is a direct measure of the hostility she faces from those around her. He considers that an ordinary person possessed by so many would be unable to remain sane. Yet, despite the immense burden of hatred she carries, Alicia remains calm and composed, showing no signs of illness or madness. This contradiction forces him to stop and reconsider everything. He questions the narrative he's been told. Would a noble's daughter, raised as a princess to one day become a queen, truly cause a public disturbance by dueling a commoner? He grasps the truth. This is the world of an otome game. To make the story more dramatic, an antagonist is essential. He realizes that Alicia's personality and actions have likely been distorted, forced into a role by the world's very structure, like a puppet manipulated by unseen hands. He looks over at the quiet girl, a new understanding dawning. He muses that they are both in a tough situation, tossed about by fate. He knows exactly what destiny has in store for her in this world. He recalls her grim future. After her engagement is annulled, Alicia's hatred festers until she makes a pact with a demon, becoming a monster that ultimately engulfs the brave territory in her quest for revenge. In every version of the story, this land is destroyed. The most chilling realization follows. This means that somewhere along the line, Alicia's path leads directly to him, a person who isn't even supposed to be part of the game. The situation is dire. He grapples with the grim reality. No matter how much he struggles, his territory is doomed to destruction. He sees both himself and Alicia as victims, dragged along by a predetermined fate, and desperately questions what he should do. His uncertainty gives way to his sudden, fierce resolve. All right then, he decides he will help her turn over a new leaf and get her back on her feet. He reasons that if they're doomed regardless, it will be far better to have her looking on the bright side of things. As they walk together, he reassures himself that they can face whatever bad things may happen. Just then, a small, dark creature with glowing eyes scurries across the path near Alicia's feet. Without hesitation, his boot comes down, crushing the creature underfoot. He declares that if that time comes, he will simply kill them. She looks at him, taken aback by his intensity. After a moment of confusion, she finds her own voice, stating that she, too, wants to resist the fate this world has in store for her. Her words bring a wide, genuine smile to his face before he quickly schools his expression, brushing off her apparent concern by saying it was nothing. He stretches his arms behind his head, a sense of ease settling over him as they continue on their way. He supposes he will just have to do his best. As she watches him, she reflects on his recent smile. She cannot recall the last time she was shown such a carefree expression, a thought that causes her to pause and stare. The memory of his unguarded warmth seems to trouble her, casting a shadow over her features as she contemplates the meaning behind it. She watched him walk away along the stone path. Unnoticed by anyone else, something had begun to sprout in the heart of the villainous young lady. To her, he was simply a strange person. Alicia Oldwood remained isolated. She ate the meals provided for her without complaint and spoke ill of no one, but otherwise kept to her room, a silent, solitary figure. Meanwhile, Ragnar Brave was dealing with a different problem. With a swift motion, he crushed one of the strange, dark insects that had been plaguing the estate. He expressed his annoyance to Seabass, explaining that he was busy exterminating the irritating demon bugs. He pointed out the sheer number of them, asking the butler for help. The young master considered tracking the bugs back to their source to eliminate the problem entirely, but hesitated, knowing that causing a large-scale commotion could lead to the dissolution of the house itself. Seabass dismissed the idea as ridiculous. He explained that the more pressing issue was Lady Alicia's heart, which was the very thing attracting the demon bugs. Ragnar felt lost, reflecting that his family only knew how to fight and that he had no experience with this kind of problem, admitting he'd never even met a girl his age before. He wondered aloud what a normal youth was even supposed to be like. Seabass, ever the calm butler, simply reassured the young master that everything would be fine. The butler then proposed an idea. They could imitate a social event from the academy, like a tea party, by having breakfast together to foster a connection. Taking the suggestion to heart, Ragnar immediately went to Alicia's door, knocking firmly and announcing that breakfast was ready. He burst in with overwhelming energy, shouting for her to wake up and join them. Alicia, already wide awake, calmly told him to just come in, pointing out that the door was on the verge of breaking from his pounding. Internally, Ragnar felt a wave of relief, glad she hadn't done anything drastic. A moment later, they were seated opposite each other at the breakfast table. She commented on his roughness, questioning what would have happened if he'd broken the door. With a hammer in hand, Ragnar casually assured her that he was well practiced in making repairs, though she seemed puzzled as to why a noble would be. He quickly changed the subject, encouraging her to enjoy her breakfast and coffee. With a slight blush on her cheeks, she silently lifted the cup to her lips and took a sip. The taste made her cough instantly. She sputtered that it was far too bitter, prompting a concerned Ragnar to ask what was wrong. Alicia apologized, explaining through her coughing that this was her first time drinking coffee, as she normally drank tea at home. Ragnar was stunned by her mistake. He apologizes for being unable to prepare any sugar, explaining its exorbitant cost in their world, but she reassures him it's fine. He suggests adding some anyway to make it better. She takes a sip, a blush rising to her cheeks as she savors the unexpected sweetness. He cautions her against drinking it before bed, lest it keep her awake. They sit together, the sound of them eating filling the quiet room. Her attention then turns to the food on her plate. With a look of alarm, she asks what he is eating, wondering if it's poisonous. He calmly explains that the boys of the Brave family are raised on monster meat. He continues, explaining that one can grow accustomed to it if they start from a young age. While the taste leaves much to be desired, it becomes an invaluable source of food during times of war. Alicia looks at him, a single word escaping her lips. She then asks why he goes to such lengths to do these things himself. He looks down, explaining that they are simply short-handed. He reveals that when necessary, even the servants join the fight, but most of them have recently fallen in battle. A look of understanding crosses her face. He looks at her intently, clarifying that this is why they honor one thing above all else: the tenacity to survive and always stand back up. As he speaks, his hand reaches out, his fingers gently touching the scar on her cheek. He tells her that here, they do not deny their scars. In fact, they are a source of pride. He looks her in the eye and calls her a truly remarkable person, before gesturing to his own head and admitting he has his own scars as well. His smile widens as he leans in, explaining that his proximity is a habit from inspecting soldiers' wounds. The sudden closeness flusters her. He then pulls back slightly, revealing his true purpose. He came to invite her out. He explains his reasoning, suggesting that in the face of the vast nature of this land, human conflicts feel insignificant. As he speaks, a blush spreads across Alicia's face, and she finds herself thinking that he seems small. After a moment's hesitation, she accepts his offer. Ragna smiles warmly, delighted by her request for him to show her around his land. The destination is set, the mountains looming in the distance. The journey, however, proves more arduous than she anticipated. As Ragna helps her over the rocky, overgrown terrain, she internally laments her decision, realizing no one had specified their outing would be a trek deep into the wilderness. He explains that they have arrived at the Udana mountain range, a massive formation near the Brave territory. This area, he notes, is rich with rare plants and minerals that are impossible to find in the royal capital. She confesses her misunderstanding, admitting she had pictured a tour of a local town with specialty goods. Ragna gently confirms her suspicion, pointing out that, as she likely saw upon her arrival, such civilized comforts are absent here. He elaborates that the only real entertainment in his land is gambling. To illustrate the harshness of this culture, he recounts a time when someone bet on his own father's death in battle. The person who profited from the wager, he adds, was dealt with by sea bass. She takes a moment to process this grim reality, quietly accepting it as the local norm. It is, she reasons, no different from the harsh coffee she was served before. He observes her attempt to adapt to this unfamiliar land and suggests they take a short break by a stream. Cupping the clear water in her hands, Alicia takes a sip and is immediately struck by how delicious it is. He explains the source of its quality. The high altitude and low evaporation of the mountains create pristine water, a purity she would never find in the capital. He acknowledges that his land is fundamentally harsh, but suggests that learning about it can make it more bearable. This philosophy, he continues, is a core teaching of the Brave family. To survive, one must deeply understand everything, the land, allies, and enemies, and never underestimate them. Alicia affirms his point, recalling a similar proverb from a far-off world. He concludes that in this land, people must decide everything for themselves based on their own understanding of the world around them. For that understanding, and for their very survival, they all must fight. He listens as Alicia remarks that she now sees the expressions of the people living here, and it's not the grim place she'd heard about in rumors. He then clarifies that while it's okay for her to laugh, the people of the Brave territory do not. It is a conscious decision, he explains, because this is a place where they gamble with life and death for entertainment. Without another word, he tells her to shake it off, and suddenly leaps forward over the rocks, announcing their destination is just ahead. Surprised, Alicia calls for him to wait. She hurries after him, pointing out the contradiction in his words, first telling her his people don't laugh, then telling her to laugh. In response, he simply takes her hand in his, a gesture that leaves her thinking he's a truly strange person. The gesture stops her short as her eyes widen, taking in the sight that has just come into view. Before her is a breathtaking sight, a vast, sun-drenched series of terraced fields carved into the mountainside, stretching out as far as the eye can see. She can only manage a single word of awe as Ragna stands beside her, a faint smile on his face. After they've taken in the view, he suggests they have a light snack, noting she must be hungry. As he unpacks, Alicia prepares to ask him a question, addressing him formally as Lord Ragna. He waves off her formality, telling her it's fine to call him without honorifics, as he isn't used to them. He adds that she doesn't need to use such polite language either. Though flustered, she agrees, hesitantly addressing him for the first time as just Ragna. He stood before her as she posed a heavy question. What does one do when, even after making a difficult choice, regret is the unavoidable outcome? She wondered aloud if simply accepting it was a real solution or just a platitude. His expression grew somber as he considered her words. His mind flashed back to a scene of rain-soaked defeat, of bodies lying still on the ground. He explained that choosing one path means losing the other, and for what is lost, nothing can be done. Hearing this, Alicia pressed further, asking what happens when there is nothing left at all. He answered grimly that if nothing is left, then there is simply nothing. His words resonated with her, pulling her back to a memory of her own life, one lived entirely for a single purpose. She considered the terrifying possibility of losing that one thing. The thought ignited a fierce declaration within her. As a duchess, she had already died. That loss, she realized, was precisely what brought her to this forsaken land, a place teeming with monstrous creatures. Snapping back to the present, she quickly apologized for her outburst, blaming her improper remark on the unsettling presence of the demon bugs. He watched her, silently questioning if it was truly possible to sever such deep-seated feelings. His hand tightened into a fist at his side as he spoke her name with sudden resolve. Alicia looked up, her cheeks flushed, caught by the intensity in his voice. As the sun crested the horizon behind them, he made a solemn vow. He would protect her from now on always. The declaration left her utterly stunned and speechless. He continued with a faint smile, observing that she wasn't used to hearing her own name. He then formalized his promise. Even if the duchess she once was is gone, she was now Alicia of the Brave family, and he would protect her unconditionally. He even confessed to having practiced the dashing line for this very moment. He sheepishly explained his image training, which involved picturing himself delivering the line to stuffy nobles from the capital. Alicia found the idea utterly ridiculous, thinking to herself that all his practice had been a waste. Her expression softened into a gentle, blushing smile. She admitted that while his method was silly, she didn't dislike it. In fact, she found his straightforward approach easy to understand. As he looked on in surprise, she realized that perhaps she had been overthinking everything. She locks her pinky finger with his, sealing their pact. She asks him if he will still protect her, even if returning to the academy with him means being exposed to a great deal of malice and hostility. He agrees without hesitation, a bright smile on his face. He assures her that he is good at dealing with such matters and that she can leave it all to him. Then, turning away slightly, he calls out to someone named Onyx, asking if they witness the moment. Alicia watches, perplexed by his sudden address. In response to his call, a colossal black dragon materializes before them, its immense form blotting out the sky. A deep voice emanates from the creature, confirming that it has witnessed the vow made by Ragnar Brave. He calmly introduces the beast as his friend, Onyx, explaining that he wanted the dragon to witness their vow. The revelation is too much for Alicia. She collapses to the ground in shock. As Ragnar cries out her name in alarm, Onyx remarks on how weak she is to faint so easily. Their first date, fraught with challenges, had certainly ended with a bang. Alicia calls out to Ragnar, observing that they seem to have grown closer since their first date. He confirms his identity, smiling. The conversation then shifts to the previous day's events, with Alicia, flanked by two maids, questioning the state of her room. Ragnar explains that he thought it would be romantic to make a vow in front of a dragon, specifically one named Onyx. He elaborates that Onyx is a dragon living deep within a mountain range, and because of its blessing, the troublesome demon bugs have disappeared. Alicia, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion, asks why he seems so calm about the whole ordeal. Ragnar simply replies that he is glad. As Alicia processes this, Seabass provides further context. He reveals that the young master previously challenged Lord Onyx to a one-on-one duel that concluded in a draw, which is how he earned the dragon's acknowledgement. Internally, Ragnar recalls the fight with a grimace, admitting to himself that he almost died. Upon hearing the full story, she grows flustered, thinking she must have looked foolish for panicking. Ragnar quickly reassures her, telling Lady Alicia that it's fine, as they were ultimately able to negotiate. Elsewhere in the estate, a bearded man and a maid work on a mountain of paperwork. The man remarks that they were also constantly surprised when they first arrived, but that eventually one gets used to the strange occurrences. Alicia, overhearing them, seems to come to an understanding. Ragnar gestures toward the overwhelming stacks of documents, indicating the massive task before them. Seeing this, Alicia's face flushes slightly as the group prepares to tackle the work. He sighs, admitting that even with his knowledge from modern society, organizing this amount of information will take a significant amount of time. In response, Alicia resolutely holds out her hand, telling him to lend the documents to her. While working, Ragnar internally notes the strange flow of money in the shop's records. He finishes confirming a set of numbers and then asks Seabass to bring him the past documents next, a request the butler readily accepts. After some time, one of the staff members lets out a sigh of relief, announcing that the work should be mostly sorted out. The focus sharpens on Alicia, who stands amidst the organized chaos, her gaze intense and focused as she holds a final document. The staff members look on in awe, praising Lady Alicia for her amazing work. Seabass remarks to Ragnar that it's no wonder she is called a talented woman, given her capability. Ragnar, resting his head on his hand, can only lament the apparent lack of basic education in modern times. He watched her, a quiet thought forming in his mind. When the demon bugs weren't attached, Alicia could smile just like any other girl. Embracing this newfound normalcy, Alicia turned to Ragnar and announced her intention to help with the mansion's cleaning. The maids were aghast, protesting that they couldn't possibly allow Lady Alicia to perform such tasks. She gently dismissed their concerns, stating that she was now a servant of the Brave family and, as a human, wished to experience things she never had before. Seabass, observing from the side, remarked on what a good child she was, prompting Ragna to agree that they should all do their best. Later, as they reviewed the estate's affairs, Seabass informed him that he had left some of the work for the young master, vowing to harden his own heart for the tasks ahead. Ragna's attention was caught by a document. He noted the unusually high price at a weapon shop and wryly asked Seabass if he was some kind of demon for setting such prices. He focused on the details of the report, a realization dawning on him. The weapon shop had opened on the very day of Alicia's arrival, and its proprietors appeared to be from the royal capital. The shop's business practices were peculiar, a style typically seen only in the capital. They presented common consumables as if they were rare treasures, a model unlikely to generate much profit in this territory. Seabass confirmed his suspicions, explaining that the most likely intention of these newcomers was to keep a watchful eye on Alicia. With the situation laid bare, he asked the young master what he intended to do. His decision made, Ragna stepped out into the night, moving silently through the darkened streets of the town. Seabass followed close behind, offering a word of caution. He warned the young master to be careful, stating that skilled individuals were present nearby. When Ragna asked how he knew, Seabass revealed his source was a local adventurer. The adventurer in question was explaining his own motivations, recounting how the shop's arrogant business practices had angered him. In response, he decided to try and steal something valuable from them. He stood before the weapon shop, recalling the adventurer's testimony. The man had lost his right arm before he even realized it, unable to see the sword's movement at all. Ragna understood with certainty. They had disarmed one of this land's rough adventurers without even drawing a blade. His thoughts turned to the nature of their foe. It had to be a magician. This world overflowed with magic essence, and those who could manipulate it were called sorcerers. He knew that those who suffered most during the war were the ones who faced enemy magicians. It seemed they truly wanted to erase their target, Alicia. With a resounding boom, he kicked the door in. Inside, a group of men were startled by his sudden entrance. One demanded to know who he was, but another recognized him immediately as Ragna Brave, questioning what he was doing there. Ragna, calm amidst their shock, stated simply that they had made the first move. He elaborated on his accusation, noting that they seemed to be snooping around his place. He then offered a condition. If they told him the reason for their surveillance, he wouldn't do anything too harsh. His offer was met with aggression. The men drew their swords, surrounding him with menacing glares. Their actions confirmed his suspicions. They were indeed armed in the presence of the territory's lord. One of the thugs, a bald man, sneered, feigning ignorance about having laid a hand on him. He then declared that if they silenced Ragna's mouth right there would be no problem, as they wouldn't be caught with weapons. Following the threat, the men charged at him all at once, shouting insults about the naive third son coming alone to face them. Their assault was futile. With a single, swift motion, Ragna drove his fist into the face of the closest attacker, contemptuously calling him weak. The force of the blow sent the man flying across the room. Moments later, the confrontation was over. All of his assailants lay groaning on the floor, completely incapacitated. Ragna stood over them, untouched. His gaze then settled on a cloaked figure sitting calmly in the corner of the room. The figure applauded slowly, a grin spreading across their face as they remarked on his wonderful strength for a boy of only 15. Ragna faced the figure directly and addressed them with deference. My lord. He faced the hooded figure, who smirked and identified him as the magician. With a casual gesture, the figure asked if they might pose a single question. His expression remained stoic as the magician asked their question. How is Miss Alicia doing? Before he could answer, the magician doubled over with manic laughter, reveling in the mere thought of the prodigy, Alicia, falling under the influence of their gift. Behind them, a monstrous, insectoid creature with large, compound eyes materialized from the shadows. The magician's influence was a palpable darkness, a memory of torment for Alicia. She had recognized the source of her suffering, her face hardening with the realization. This confirmation sent Ragna into a fury. He lunged, grabbing the magician by their robes and roaring that it was them. He accused them of sending a swarm of demon bugs day after day, promising to teach them a lesson for what they'd done to Alicia. In response, the giant praying mantis demon struck. Its massive, scythe-like arms slammed into the floorboards, shattering them instantly. Ragna leaped back, narrowly avoiding the devastating blow. The magician watched, their face contorted in crazed disbelief. The very idea of Lady Alicia living freely with a smile was an outcome they simply could not fathom or accept. He resolved to check on Alicia at once, but the magician vowed not to let him go. They gloated about sending their feelings to her daily, a continuous curse to make her resent everyone. Ragna swung his blade at the creature, but it was useless. The magician mocked him, echoing his own thoughts. Why can't I cut it? Anything you do is useless. The magician grunted as Ragna's grip tightened. He looked down at them coldly, informing them that their next task was to answer for the sheer number of pests they had sent. He stood over the defeated figure, who now lay on the floor amidst the wreckage. Ragna made an offer. He would spare their life, but only if they revealed who was truly behind this entire plot. He raised his sword, declaring the strike was for the trouble caused to Alicia. In response, the defeated magician could only repeat a single, hateful phrase, vowing to curse him again and again. As the curses faded into the background, Seabass appeared in a nearby doorway, asking if the confrontation was over. With a confident smirk, Ragnar replied that he was already cursed, then calmly requested that Seabass handle the cleanup. He then turned to Seabass with a serious question, inquiring if there was any way to keep Alicia close to him when they attend the academy. The butler's expression shifted to one of stunned surprise. The butler's mind immediately jumped to a scandalous conclusion, asking if Ragnar meant for them to live under the same roof and fretting that becoming pregnant as a student would be problematic. A flustered Ragnar vehemently denied that was his intention. Later that night, the estate settled into a quiet stillness under the starry sky. Walking alone through the darkened streets, Ragnar reflected on his recent actions. He wondered if this was the first time he had gone to such lengths for something other than avenging his father. His thoughts then drifted to the future, questioning if he would be able to fit in at the academy. Meanwhile, Alicia sat at her desk, diligently preparing for their time at the academy. She made a mental note of all the things she needed to tell Ragnar. With mutual feelings in their hearts, the night deepened around them. A few months later, on the eve of their departure for the royal capital, Alicia Oldwood works in a garden. She expresses regret that she won't be able to harvest the daikon radishes in time. Nearby, Ragnar Brave, his butler Seabass, and two maids observe her, with Ragnar internally questioning if this is how a so-called villainess is supposed to behave. The resources once allocated for her higher education have since been redirected to household chores. This shift has resulted in her becoming a remarkably talented and capable woman, adept at everything from cleaning to serving meals, a transformation Ragnar has witnessed firsthand. This new life is abruptly interrupted by the sound of a frantic voice. One of the maids, her face etched with panic, runs across the estate grounds, desperately calling out for Alicia. She reaches the carriage just as the pair are about to leave, tearfully pleading for Alicia not to go. The other maids agree, suggesting that Lady Alicia could simply remain at the mansion, noting the stark difference in her treatment. Alicia, however, gently dismisses their concerns, asking them to eat the vegetables from the garden with everyone else once they are ready. In response, the other maid presents Alicia with a thick leather collar. She explains it was something the young master wore as a child and instructs Alicia to use it to reprimand him should his behavior become outrageous. As the carriage pulls away, the maids shout their farewells, urging Ragnar to eat his vegetables and not catch a cold. One triumphantly yells that she managed to give Alicia the collar, adding that if anything happens to her, Ragnar's punishment will be to mop the floor. Inside the carriage, Alicia smiles warmly at Ragnar, remarking on how loved he is by everyone and admitting to a touch of envy. Ragnar looks away, quietly acknowledging that this is the first time in his life he has ever traveled beyond his own territory. His mind flashes back to the heartfelt goodbyes from the people of his estate. He remembers his simple declaration, "I'm leaving now," before the carriage set off. Now he gazes out the window at the vast, unfamiliar landscape rolling past. Later, Seabass announces that the royal capital is now in sight. As Ragnar turns to look, Alicia averts her gaze, her face flushed. She murmurs that it's pathetic, but she has a favor to ask of him. She asks him to show her how to buy a ticket when they arrive at the station. Ragnar readily agrees. Alicia then giggles and asks if he could also show her how to ride the train, teasingly reminding him that it's his first outing as well. Flustered, Ragnar tells her not to laugh. Upon arriving at the royal capital, Alicia notes the crowded streets and playfully suggests putting a collar on Ragnar to keep him from getting lost. Ragnar, startled, recognizes the collar she mimes as the one from his past, questioning what kind of game she is playing. Before them lies the sprawling royal capital, Ether, a metropolis of over 1 million people protected by a barrier from an ancient sage. Ragnar observes that, compared to the brave territory, it is cramped, but the absence of monsters and war makes it clear why so many gather here. As they make their way through the lively city streets, he asks if their dormitory is located within the school grounds. Alicia confirms that it is, adding that there are separate dormitories for boys and girls, a fact she seems to look forward to. Their journey continues by train, crossing over the landscape towards their destination. They finally arrive at a shockingly dilapidated and shabby building. Ragnar is appalled, not only by its condition, but by the realization that boys and girls will be living together. Alicia, however, spots a letter from Seabass, noting that its location seems quite far from the school itself. Reading the letter, she understands. Seabass has orchestrated this situation. By having her live in a rundown dormitory and face public humiliation, he aims to appease the nobles who oppose her return to society. Ragnar takes the letter, musing that if no one else is around, their seclusion is actually convenient, though the place certainly needs cleaning. He idly considers growing vegetables in the courtyard. He suddenly crushes the paper in his fist as he reads on. The letter reveals Seabass's true motive, ensuring the two of them live together. The butler's final instruction is clear. Ragnar must pass the exam and enter the same upper class as Lady Alicia. He wishes him good luck. The letter explains that their destination, Ethernam Academy, gathers nearly all the noble children of the country. Its classes are divided by rank. The upper class is reserved for those with the potential for a royal marriage, while all others are relegated to the lower class. It further clarifies that even commoners have a path to enrollment. If their magic or knowledge is recognized as exceptional, they can be admitted under the special status of descendants of sages. Taking in all this information, Ragnar's expression hardens. He acknowledges their difficult position, nobles from a remote land. One of them is so-called villainous. But his resolve is already set. Standing before Alicia, Ragnar makes a firm promise. If their success depends on a contest of skill, he will show her that they can win. His resolve is set as he heads for the Ethernam Academy entrance exam, where he is immediately admonished for being late. He apologizes to the stern, muscular examiner, explaining that he got lost. The teacher is unimpressed, clicking his tongue at the noble from a remote land who kept him waiting. Calling Ragna a slowpoke, he declares the start of the basic magic test, ordering the boy to shoot his maximum output at the designated target. The examiner crosses his arms with a sigh, muttering, "Good grief," and questioning why he was assigned this task. While Ragna prepares himself for the test, he focuses his intent, his hand outstretched towards the target, a look of intense concentration on his face. A moment later, a thunderous explosion rips through the testing area. The examiner's sportswear is torn from his body by the sheer force of the blast, leaving him to stare in utter disbelief at the devastation. He stands frozen, gazing at the massive, smoking crater where the wall once stood. The raw power leaves the teacher sweating and bewildered, wondering who this boy could possibly be. Unfazed, Ragna simply asks if he passed and what the next tests are. Composing himself, the examiner concedes that Ragna has some skill in magic, but declares that he will never pass this test. He hands Ragna a wooden staff, announcing the next phase, a swordsmanship test. The rules are simple. If Ragna can defeat him, he passes. He adds a critical condition. Magic is prohibited. Failure means being unable to continue fighting. The examiner roars, calling Ragna a barbarian as he raises his staff to strike. Ragna calmly agrees, stating his intention to finish the bout quickly. With a powerful downward swing, the examiner attacks, but Ragna moves with blinding speed, dropping into a low crouch and effortlessly dodging the blow. The teacher is thrown completely off balance by the swift evasion. He stands over the defeated examiner, holding the two halves of his shattered wooden sword. With a calm smile, he observes that his opponent's weapon had an iron core. He then points out the strangeness of the situation, noting that his own sword was just ordinary wood. His smile fades as he confronts the examiner directly, accusing him of sabotage. He asserts that the examiner intended to fail him by providing a weapon designed to break, leaving him defenseless. As the tension mounts, a new voice cuts through, asking about the source of the commotion. The source of the voice is revealed to be an imposing, elderly man with a long, braided beard, Vorzia Grand Cascade, the school principal. Ragna's eyes widen in shock at this unexpected arrival. The principal, with a stern gaze, asks Ragna if he was responsible for the scene, leaving the young man momentarily stunned and unable to answer. The school director, Vorzia Grand Cascade, stands with his arms crossed, addressing the young man before him. He confirms his understanding that today is the day of the transfer exam. The young man, Ragna Brave, looks on intently. As he observes Ragna, Vorzia internally notes the young man's prestigious background. He recognizes him as the one who holds the title of sage and hails from a ducal house, concluding that it would be troublesome to attract his attention. The director continues his silent assessment, stroking his long beard in thought. Ragna remains still, awaiting the verdict with a neutral expression. After a moment, Vorzia delivers his decision with a simple pronouncement. "You pass." Ragna's eyes widen in shock, clearly taken aback by the sudden and unconditional approval. He quickly recovers, offering his thanks, but questioning if it is truly acceptable. Vorzia dismisses his concern, stating that it is fine and that there is little difference in bloodline between the higher and lower ranks. With the matter of the exam settled, the director then poses a direct question to him. Does he wish to join the upper class? As he considers the offer, Ragna's thoughts drift to a smiling young woman with distinctive clips in her hair. He begins to formulate his response, starting with a hesitant but his hesitation vanishes, replaced by firm resolve. He looks the director in the eye and states clearly that there is someone he must protect here. Vorzia accepts his answer with a simple, "Very well." However, another administrator suddenly intervenes, protesting the decision. He argues that Ragna was born in the Forsaken Lands and that his fiancée recently caused an incident, questioning what they plan to do. Vorzia cuts him off, reaffirming his acknowledgement of Ragna's admission into the upper class. The administrator recoils in fear as Vorzia turns on him, his face a mask of fury. The director roars at the man, calling him an idiotic fool for questioning his authority. He continues to berate the administrator, demanding to know his position in the academy. The man identifies himself as a teacher, to which the director retorts that if he perceives a problem, he should act like a teacher and guide the situation before trouble arises. He then announces that, as a special exception, Ragna Brave will be allowed to use a particular dormitory. Turning to leave, he adds a final warning that the students should be mindful to maintain a proper and decent relationship. The flustered administrator can only agree as a young woman with clips in her hair watches the director depart. Elsewhere, Ragna Brave arrives at a building, announcing his return. He reflects that the recent events also inadvertently helped the story's protagonist level up, picturing the director and the young woman in his mind. As he stands in the doorway, the young woman rushes toward him, calling his name. She anxiously asks if he is okay and if anyone said anything strange to him. Ragna, noticing her new school uniform, asks if it's for a fitting and comments that it's cute, causing her to blush as she insists she's fine. Now inside, he calmly sips from a cup and informs her that he passed the exam. He admits it wasn't one he was eager to take, but after being put through a difficult ordeal, he succeeded. The young woman looks on in surprise, asking what happened. His words seem to remind her of something, and her expression turns serious. She tells him she has been wondering for a while and asks him to finally explain what his magic disease is. He finds the question difficult to answer, explaining that he can use all the basic forms of magic. However, just as he is about to reveal what he is best at, a loud growl from her stomach interrupts the conversation. The sound hangs in the air, and her face flushes a deep crimson with embarrassment. She quickly recovers from her mortification, loudly declaring that they should have dinner. She reasons that they will be busy at the academy starting the next day and will need something nutritious. Her energetic outburst fades, and she adds quietly, with a gentle expression, that she doesn't mind what anyone says to her because he is there with her. She looks back at Ragna with a questioning gaze as he tells her that she is probably stronger than he is. Turning away with her hands clasped behind her, she asks what he means. He explains that she possesses the rare ability to endure mental pain, a fortitude that even seasoned soldiers lack. He concludes that she is who she is because she truly knows herself. Later, as they walk through the school grounds in their new uniforms, other students begin to whisper. They point out the scar on her face from the duel, gossiping that while she is beautiful, her prospects for marriage are now gone. One student, however, quietly observes that she seems at peace. The gossiping student's companion scoffs internally, thinking that with her status lowered, he might be able to make her his concubine. A moment later, that same student suddenly collapses, foaming at the mouth, to the shock of his friend. The girl, blushing, turns to Ragna and tells him stop. He feigns ignorance with a slight smile, asking what she means. The day proceeds, and the students find themselves in a classroom, where a teacher with glasses lectures at the front of the room. During the lesson, Ragnar reflects on the earlier incident, thinking that he had only directed a small amount of killing intent. He wonders if everyone from the mainland is so weak. Then his thoughts shift, musing that the protagonist is destined to awaken as a saint in the final stage. His mind conjures the image of a beautiful girl with small wings, someone as pure as a clear blue sky. He struggles for a moment, trying to recall her name. Then, it comes to him with certainty. Her name was Mariana Ocean. As his memory solidifies, the teacher's lecture coincidentally aligns with his thoughts. She explains that the magic most frequently used by the great sage was one with no attribute, a power that requires one to reach the pinnacle of nothingness to master. As the lecture continued, a girl with braided hair and glasses turned, a smug expression as clear as the blue sky gracing her features. From his desk, Ragna's eyes widened in shock. A single thought electrified his mind. It was her, the heroine. In a classroom, a teacher with braided hair smiles, confirming a student's answer is correct, even though it was a trick question. The student, Mariana Ocean, adjusts her glasses with a composed smile, a display of confidence expected from the sage's pupil. Behind her, Ragna looks on with a hint of surprise. She, however, is in turmoil, realizing with shock that she's being treated like the heroine of an Otome game. It's the fourth time this month someone has switched seats with her out of politeness. She laments that with her appearance, she's expected to pursue a romance with a prince. The stress of it all seems to manifest physically as she notices her glasses are cracked, wishing she'd asked for a seat closer to the front. Her distress doesn't go unnoticed. Another female student kindly offers to switch seats, but Mariana, flustered, insists she is fine and will manage on her own. The other student sighs, accepting her refusal. The memory of the classroom incident seems to be on Ragna's mind as he thinks of Alicia. In the flashback, Mariana bows her head repeatedly, apologizing profusely for some unseen disturbance. In the present, he speaks with Alicia directly. He tells her it's not something he can ask of her, musing that men who dig up the past are absolutely no good. Alicia looks at him quizzically, holding a plate. Before he can elaborate, a sudden crash shatters the quiet moment. A window pane cracks as both he and Alicia turn sharply toward the sound, their expressions hardening with alarm. The intrusion continues with violent force. A massive, dark appendage smashes through the wall, sending splinters flying as Alicia cries out in shock. The attack halts abruptly, stopped by an unseen force just inches from her. Alicia looks up at the appendage, then asks Ragnar what it is. He calmly assesses the damage, remarking that he'll have to fix it later, before explaining that it's a hidden barrier. Alicia looks at him, confused. He elaborates, revealing that the magic he's using is a transparent barrier of the holy attribute. He adds that it's the same kind of guardian barrier that covers the entire royal capital. He sat on the floor, the immediate danger having passed. Alicia stood over him, breaking the silence. She asked, with a hint of awe, if he could truly use magic without incantations, remarking on how convenient that must be. He confirmed her suspicion with a casual gesture, explaining that most people's concept of a barrier is rudimentary, a simple, solid wall. But with chantless casting, he continued, the possibilities expanded far beyond that. As he spoke, he picked up a nearby coffee pot, causing Alicia to watch with a puzzled expression. He then demonstrated his point, pouring a stream of dark liquid that defied gravity, twisting and looping in the air before settling perfectly into a cup. He explained that his barriers could be molded into any shape, a feat that left Alicia staring in stunned silence. He then posed a question, asking if she knew of other differences between ordinary barriers and the grand ones protecting the royal capital. Alicia, however, was momentarily captivated by the small, floating orb of coffee he had created, her surprise giving way to delight as she called it cute. Her focus quickly returned to the problem. After a moment of thought, she correctly deduced the advanced function, the ability to selectively filter what passes through, allowing people to enter while repelling magic. She affirmed her conclusion, elaborating that advanced barriers offer precise control over what is permitted and what is repelled. He used the coffee as an example, noting that while the barrier is versatile, it has limits. It cannot, for instance, separate ingredients that are already blended together. The practical matter of their dwindling supplies brought the lesson to a close, as he mentioned they were now out of coffee. Seizing the opportunity, Alicia shyly asked if he was free later, suggesting they go out together. In response to their lack of coffee, she confidently stated that she knew of a place that served a delicious brew. They set out, walking along a quiet street. Ragna, curious, asked how she had learned of this cafe. When she replied that a friend had told her, he couldn't hide his surprise, remarking that he didn't expect her to have friends, given her circumstances. He listens as Alicia explains how she met her friend. She recounts that one time while studying in the library during lunch, someone approached her. Discovering a mutual love for coffee, they became friends, and it was this new friend who told her about the cafe. Following her directions, they arrive at their destination. Alicia announces they are here, pointing out a sign for the coffee specialty shop. Ocean, a name Ragna quietly notes. As they stand before the entrance, the door swings open to reveal a young woman with glasses and braided hair. She looks out with an expression of surprise, asking if she is not Alicia. The young woman explains that she saw them standing in front of the store and was beginning to wonder what was happening. Ragna, however, is struck by a sudden realization, his eyes widening as he calls out her name, Mariana. Alicia confirms her identity, introducing Mariana as the one who truly loves coffee, and in turn, introduces Ragna to her. Mariana offers a slightly flustered but polite greeting. Her expression shifts to one of recognition. She asks Ragna if they aren't in the same class. He confirms they are, though he admits they have never actually spoken before. Suddenly, Mariana's demeanor changes completely. She becomes frantic, stammering a profound apology, unable to believe someone of noble status is here. She questions why Alicia is with Ragna, prompting Alicia to calmly state that he is her fiancé. The news sends Mariana into a full-blown panic. She throws herself to the ground in a deep bow, wailing that her behavior is unforgivable and fearing she will be executed. Ragna can only stare, utterly bewildered by her extreme reaction. Now seated inside the cafe, a mortified Mariana apologizes for losing her composure, lamenting that things turned out so disappointingly for a main heroine. Alicia reassures her that she did nothing wrong, reminding her that she was the one who initiated their conversation. Mariana quietly admits she was just excited at the prospect of finally making a friend. Her thoughts drift back to the moment she first saw Alicia in the library, sipping coffee. She recalls her mistaken assumption at the time, that Alicia was a commoner, just like her. She explains her confusion, having heard there would be 2 disciples of the sage this year, which led her to make an assumption. Ragna processes this new information, a deviation from the events he remembers. He wonders if there is another disciple he doesn't know about, while also noting to himself that coffee is considered a commoner's drink in this world, though he personally enjoys it. Alicia then asks if that was why Mariana had been acting alone, confirming she was unaware of the commotion she had caused. The girl looks flustered, questioning aloud why she hadn't heard about the uproar over the decision and lamenting that such a significant event had occurred entirely without her knowledge. She then explains the reason for her ignorance. On the day of the event, she had mistakenly taken the wrong carriage to the academy, only realizing her error when she arrived somewhere that was clearly not the capital. Ragna finds this suspicious, questioning why her carriage would go astray on the day of such an important event. He silently wonders if it was a mere coincidence or something more deliberate. Alicia interjects, noting that while Mariana may seem scatterbrained, she has heard that she is a genius when it comes to magic. Beaming with pride, Mariana confirms her magical talent, adding with a cheerful smile that her parents often said she was useless at everything else. The mention of her parents prompts Ragna to ask about them. Her cheerful demeanor vanishes. She quietly informs them that her parents are dead, having succumbed to an illness a year prior. Ragna, taken aback, immediately apologizes for his insensitivity. She tells him it's all right, her expression softening as she adds that she is only here now because of them. Shifting the tone, she remembers her duties as a host, noting that she originally invited them, but has yet to serve them anything. With a gentle smile, she offers them both some coffee. Alicia takes a sip from the cup Mariana prepared, her eyes widening in surprise as she exclaims how delicious it is. She immediately praises Mariana, noting that the coffee is amazing and completely different from the one Ragna made. Ragna, looking thoughtful, concedes that she is right, while Mariana gives a small, pleased smile. He wonders aloud what could make them so different when they use the same beans. Nearby, Seabass takes a drag from his cigarette and sips his own coffee, wryly suggesting to the young master that the bitterness might be a metaphor for his life, much to the confusion of the maids beside it. Ignoring the butler's remark, he turns his attention back to Mariana, declaring that from now on, he will consider her his mentor. Mariana becomes flustered by the sudden proclamation, but Alicia quickly steps in to reassure her that he is only joking. She looks down, a slight blush on her cheeks, and murmurs that it's strange. Despite being nobles, she finds that neither of them are scary at all. Her mind wanders back to a warning she received long ago from a neighborhood child. To defy the nobles, even a little, meant death. She recalls another memory from that same time, when she was struck down by a noble's carriage. The impact left her sprawled in the dirt, injured and alone. Just as the child had warned, the occupants of the carriage showed no sign of caring, leaving her behind without a second thought. She explains that because of that accident, her eyesight worsened. Her parents, hearing a rumor that coffee could improve vision, began preparing it, and soon the entire family started drinking it together. Returning to the present, Mariana's eyes swirl with an intense, almost manic passion as she holds her cup. She concludes her story, explaining that before they knew it, her whole family had become coffee fanatics, captivated by its richness. She confidently affirms her skill in magic when Alicia asks. Among her abilities, she explains, there's one she excels at above all others. Her specialty, she reveals, is recovery magic, the power to heal people. Alicia reacts with surprise, exclaiming that such an ability is extremely rare, a fact Ragna quietly confirms. She continues, explaining that in this world, very few people can use recovery magic on others. This is a stark contrast to the game, where the character of Saint Mariana possessed immense power, capable of healing any disease, exorcising demons, and even regenerating lost limbs. Her motivation is deeply personal. She confesses that a year ago, she was powerless to help her sick parents. This painful memory drove her to study relentlessly, determined to gain the power to save those she holds dear. Moved by the story, Alicia embraces her tightly. After the moment passes, Alicia looks around, noting the absence of any other customers. Her observation is met with an explanation from Ragna. He points out that he closed the shop upon entering, as he was the last one to arrive. The realization dawns on Alicia with a jolt. She immediately grabs Ragna by his shirt, berating him for obstructing business and demanding he open the door at once. Mariana looks on, her head tilted in curiosity. Her outburst is calmed by Mariana, who reassures them that it's perfectly fine. She explains that she has been focusing on her studies lately, so she's been closing the shop on holidays regardless. She sees them off at the door, where Alicia thanks her for the day. Alicia then asks if Mariana will not be entering the dormitory, reasoning that as a sage's child, she would likely be exempt from many of the usual requirements. She stands before her home with a gentle smile, simply stating that she will not be going to the dormitory because she likes this house. Her gaze follows them as she makes a heartfelt offer, telling Alicia to let her know if she ever runs into any problems at the academy. She blushes at Alicia's effusive praise, who finds her dazzling. Mariana humbly replies that Alicia's kind words are more than enough, thanking her sincerely. As the three stand together, Mariana makes a bold request, asking Ragna to give Alicia to her. He immediately and firmly refuses, leaving Alicia to wonder what they're talking about. Later, as he walks with Alicia under the night sky, she turns to him with a slight blush, asking for his opinion on Mariana, wanting to know if he thinks she's a good person. Meanwhile, Mariana reflects on her first meeting with Alicia. She remembers being struck by her beautiful eyes and the direct way Alicia looked at her, recalling that someone else once had the same kind of eyes. Back on their walk, Ragna seems to understand Alicia's sentiment. He muses that he understands how people with a strong inner core can turn out that way. She agrees, then asks if he too has seen it, that particular quality in someone's gaze. He looks directly at her, describing her eyes as not only beautiful and cute, but also possessing a powerful will capable of resisting fate itself. Alicia is overcome with a deep blush at the compliment. Ragna, flustered by his own words, insists he isn't the princely type, but the two continue to flirt casually. In one version of a story, there exists a villainess and a commoner protagonist. The villainess, a noble woman, looks down upon the commoner with a confident, almost predatory smile, setting the stage for an inevitable conflict. These two fated girls were destined to be locked in battle, a confrontation that would continue until one of them was utterly destroyed. But now, in a stark defiance of that fate, they simply have lunch together. The commoner girl exclaims that Alicia's mixed sandwich looks delicious. With a slight blush, Alicia kindly offers her one. Watching them from a short distance, Ragna Brave observes their interaction. He thinks to himself that harmony among friends is a beautiful thing. His pleasant thought, however, is immediately soured by a wave of unease. A troubled expression crosses his face as he wonders how events could have possibly ended up like this. Meanwhile, the girl with glasses notices his absence. She wonders aloud where Ragna went, remarking that he disappeared right after break time started, even though he is usually so serious about his classes. He hasn't gone far. Alone, Ragna considers the social consequences of his actions. He muses that now that he is associated with someone who is abandoned in the wasteland, the criticism directed at him will likely increase. He walks away, contemplating the strange fate where the protagonist and the villainous noblewoman get along. With a sense of resignation, he accepts his role, thinking he is fine with being a side character. Alicia, however, is also lost in thought, recalling the events of the original game world. In that timeline, Mariana, the commoner, was enjoying a peaceful school life. It was Alicia who lost their duel and was driven into the frontier territory. The memory of that alternate fate solidifies a new understanding. A pair of glasses lies shattered on the ground as she comes to a firm conclusion. In this world, Mariana is not the one she must fight. She knelt on the dusty ground, defeated. The question of who had bested Alicia in the original timeline lingered in Ragnar's mind, his expression hardening at the thought. He recalled that it was the prince who had initiated the duel. This deviation from the expected story piqued his curiosity about the current state of affairs. Searching through the academy grounds, his attention was caught by a high-pitched, adoring cry for someone named Edward. He peered around a corner, realizing he had found them. He saw the man, Edward Gran Etherdam, Alicia's former fiancé. The prince was politely declining an invitation to lunch from a group of female students, stating he already had a promise with someone. Ragnar knew this man's path was considered the classic route in the game. In that world, Edward was essentially an easy opponent, a tutorial stage prince designed to be overcome first. The prince now turned to his awaited companion, a gentle smile on his face as he acknowledged their reunion. He watched, considering that if things were proceeding according to the original story, the protagonist should be deepening her relationship with the prince right now. Just then, Edward called out, apologizing for keeping his companion waiting. As the girl turned, Ragnar's eyes widened in shock. It was not who he expected. The girl, Patricia, insisted she had just arrived and told the prince he didn't need to use her full title, suggesting he call her Edward instead. He readily agreed. His expression softened as he recalled their first meeting in the castle town, before they had even enrolled in the academy. He reminded her that back then, she called him by his name without hesitation. She blushed, explaining that at the time, she had no idea he was royalty. With a shy smile, she confessed that being able to reunite with him at the academy felt like fate. Edward gently took her hand, his gaze sincere. He insisted that it was precisely because it was her that he wanted her to call him by his name, not his title. Patricia was left speechless, her heart fluttering. Patricia looks on with a deep blush, her hands clasped as she whispers Edward's name. Nearby, Ragnar Brave observes the scene, finding the public display of affection embarrassing. He tries to process the information, confirming the girl's name is Patricia, a name that never existed in the game he knew. He wonders aloud if she has somehow replaced Mariana, the girl who should have been in that position. His mind flashes back to the sight of Edward and Patricia on the bench, the prince seemingly cautioning her about something. Ragnar is left questioning who this mysterious person truly is. The thought is interrupted as four other handsome young men approach the pair. One with slicked back hair declares that he won't let Edward get ahead, while another with glasses remarks on Patricia's unbelievable ability to capture all of their attention, calling her a bad person in jest. They make it clear that they are all there for her. A shocking realization dawns on Ragnar. Those men are all the romanceable targets from the original story. This means Patricia has successfully created a reverse harem. Unfazed by the attention, she cheerfully invites everyone to have lunch together. She presents a large basket, assuring them she is fine and has prepared extra portions as usual, a classic tactic. This is textbook Reverse Harem 101. Ragnar analyzes the scene with disbelief. Patricia is completely usurping the protagonist's role, having somehow triggered the affection flags for all the men, an achievement considered impossible on a first playthrough. He reasons that while having multiple partners is already problematic, it's far worse given that these men are all heirs to powerful families and should already have fiancés. Deciding this is none of his concern, he resolves to stay away from the reverse harem group. Yet, as he turns, a grim vision flashes in his mind. Patricia's lifeless body on the ground. He realizes it wouldn't be surprising if someone in such a tangled web of relationships met a mysterious end after graduation. But he was not the only one watching. From a distance, Alicia Oldwood observes the group, her expression thoughtful. She concludes that there is one person who needs to be watched carefully, just as she had thought. From a distance, Ragnar observed another student, identified as Jalasis Gran Ignite, the second son of the Ignite ducal family. Jalasis remarked to his companions that it was tastier to eat together rather than in the cafeteria, but Ragnar's mind flashed with a memory of a far more menacing expression on the young man's face. As he watched, Jalasis approached Alicia and Patricia on a bench. He casually addressed Patricia as the mysterious girl, and asked if she happened to know about the magician causing a commotion in the Brave territory. The question sent a jolt through Ragnar. He recalled that Jalasis was a troublesome character, born to a concubine as insurance for the family heir. His story was a dark and complicated one, and Ragnar knew that rushing into any interaction with him would be a poor move. He understood that Jalasis was a dangerous individual, one whose entire demeanor could shift from gentle to menacing, depending entirely on the choices made around him. He continued to observe from afar as Jalasis fawned over Patricia. Ragnar considered that even though the Ignite family had targeted him, he and Jalasis had never actually met. For now, he decided to leave the situation alone. Later, speaking with Alicia, Ragnar stated his sole desire, for her to live a peaceful life. To prevent the potential ruin he foresaw in the future, he would do what was necessary. As he knelt, he noticed someone peeking at them from a doorway, an act he found distasteful. The observer revealed himself. It was the school principal, Vorzia Grand Cascade, standing on the rooftop with an imposing, fiery aura. He called out to Ragnar, asking what he was doing on the roof and warning him of the danger. Ragnar calmly retorted that the principal was the last person who should be saying that. He then added that the timing was perfect, as there was something he wanted to ask. His thoughts clarified his purpose. He considered Patricia, with her unnatural blonde hair showing dark roots, and the impossible reverse harem she had formed. There was no doubt in his mind that the girl was. He stands before the school principal, his expression resolute. He asks Vorzia to tell him about the student named Patricia. Internally, the truth crystallizes in his mind. She is a reincarnator, just like him. He now understands that a distorted fate is unfolding, and she is at its very center. Ragna Brave makes a direct plea, asking to be told everything about a student named Patricia, her origins, her past, and her magical talents. As he speaks, the school director, Vorzia Grand Cascade, observes him, his expression stern as he murmurs the name Patricia Kindred. The question hangs in the air. Can Ragna uncover the truth about the second reincarnated person? Meanwhile, Alicia Oldwood calmly denies any wrongdoing when questioned about her suspicions. She asserts that Patricia's admission was legitimate, a result of passing the entrance exam, and insists she is not engaged in any secret manipulation herself. His suspicions, however, are not so easily assuaged. Walking alone, he reflects on the recent events, remembering how the protagonist was deliberately separated from the group. He theorizes that if Patricia is behind this, another noble must have helped by switching the carriage. Unseen, a cloaked figure observes him from above. From their vantage point, the observer comes to a swift conclusion. The Ignite family is the most probable culprit. Back in his conversation with Ragna, Vorzia acknowledges the young man's caution. He explains his reasoning. As long as their true objective remains unknown, it is far better to have them enrolled and under observation than to leave them to their own devices. He sighs, reluctantly agreeing with the director's logic. With a hint of weariness, he murmurs that it would be nice to live a peaceful life. The director's gaze sharpens. He reminds Ragna that as a student, he has every right to enjoy his youth and directly asks why he chooses to live such a constrained existence. His expression shifts to a bright, almost disarming smile as he poses a question of his own, asking if Vorzia has forgotten the pride of the Brave family. The smile does not impress the director, whose face contorts in disappointment. He lectures that the blood of the Brave family is defined by its resistance in the face of adversity, a fight to the very last breath. He had believed Ragna was clinging to that ideal, but now he questions if the young man's resolve is truly so weak. In response, Ragna's hand tightens into a fist. His resolve proves anything but weak. With a surge of motion, he throws a powerful punch, striking the director squarely in the face. His fist connects with the director's face, the force of the blow cracking the very stone wall behind them. The resulting tremor shakes the academy grounds. Students nearby cry out in alarm, wondering about the source of the rumbling. Back at the source of the commotion, Ragna stands firm, his expression unreadable as the dust settles around the director's unmoving form. However, the director is completely unharmed. He has effortlessly stopped the punch just shy of his face, his gaze sharp and unwavering. He glares, declaring that this was the exact situation he wanted. He warns Vorzia that he doesn't care if this is the director's private garden. If any harm comes to Alicia, he will not be forgiven. The director calmly agrees. If that is Ragna's wish, he says, then he must prove his conviction. He then shifts the topic, asking about Mariana Ocean. Ragna questions the director's meaning, wondering if he's referring to the grim scenario unfolding or to fate itself. Vorzia explains that Mariana is a child with a strong fate, but that this fate is currently distorting on a massive scale and spiraling into madness. He continues, stating that this distortion will eventually involve everyone at the academy who possesses a strong fate, likely dividing the entire country between light and darkness as visions of Patricia, Edward, and Alicia appear. He concludes by telling Ragna that Mariana, having lost her guardian, currently has no strength to resist this fate. His task, Vorzia implies, is to protect her. The practical training dungeon is not a part of this small world. It lies somewhere else, in a different place entirely. Inside, one of the students, a girl with braided pigtails and glasses, clenches her fists, admitting to herself that she is getting nervous. She turns to Ragna Brave, asking if this is Mariana's first time in a dungeon. He confirms it is, while privately wondering just how much Director Vorzia knows about his mission to protect the girl. Nearby, Mariana clings to him, admitting she's scared. This is the practical training dungeon, a place to apply the magic learned in class. Those safety measures are in place. A moment of carelessness could easily lead to injury as other students battle a monstrous creature. Elsewhere in the cavern, Patricia Kindred tells Edward she feels weak. He reassures her, promising that he will protect her. As they embrace, Ragna watches from a distance with a strained expression. He realizes that for some, this dungeon is merely an opportunity to grow closer to their romantic interests. His gaze remains fixed on them. He knows there is an important event tied to a sacred relic hidden deep inside this place, and he wonders what their plans are concerning the fake one. Suddenly, Alicia Oldwood arrives, confidently adjusting her gloves and announcing her readiness to proceed. Ragna's heart pounds as he sees her, thinking she looks like a battle-hardened adventurer. He questions his own excitement, while another student points her out as the damaged girl. The student, a girl with elaborate drill-like curls named Lady Ekaterina, scoffs. She calls Alicia a persistent commoner trying to cling to the academy by cozying up to the nobility. Her companion readily agrees. Ragnar overhears their cruel words, his expression turning to one of shock. He recognizes that girl, Ekaterina, as someone who used to be close to Alicia. His group was immediately subjected to Ekaterina's scorn. Her eyes narrowed as she derided the presence of so many lowlifes, lumping in peasants and even filthy monkeys from the slums. She then turned and strode away, declaring loudly that this was an academy for refined nobles, leaving Alicia to stare after her in disbelief. Her menacing advance continued until her shadow fell over the bespectacled student. Ekaterina offered to drive out all the filthy beings for her, a clear threat. Before the girl could react, Ragnar's sharp voice cut through the tension, calling out to them. His call was answered not by Ekaterina, but by the sudden arrival of another student. She stood with a commanding presence, drawing the attention of Ragnar and the frightened girl beside him. The newcomer calmly greeted Ekaterina, who immediately bristled at her smug demeanor. Ekaterina demanded to know who allowed commoners into the academy, calling the other student a damaged failure. Unfazed, she accepted the animosity, stating she deserved it, but insisting the bespectacled girl was uninvolved. She then issued a direct challenge to Ekaterina and her companion, offering to settle things with a duel or any other means. She then leaned close to the bespectacled student, whispering a cryptic warning that she didn't believe the girl could win against the sage's disciples, or even against her. The challenge enraged Ekaterina, who accused her of getting cocky over building a monkey mountain. She spat a final insult, telling her to spend her life drinking coffee, which elicited a flash of anger from the newcomer. Her anger quickly subsided, replaced by a gentle, determined smile. She affirmed that she would drink the coffee, simply because she likes it. Her challenge left Ekaterina seething. With a click of her tongue, she declared the situation a buzzkill, complaining about an unbearable smell before turning to leave with her follower in tow. As they departed, Ragnar watched the two remaining students, a look of sudden understanding on his face. He realized he knew it all along. The two of them possessed a remarkable presence. The student with the ponytail then turned to Alicia, acknowledging her strength. She apologized, taking the blame for getting caught up with a strange person. Ragnar, however, quickly interjected, telling her she was wrong. He insisted that she had looked cool, and it was because of this strong feeling that he had ended up liking her. His confession was met with a question from the bespectacled student. She reminded him that Ekaterina's group had called Alicia damaged, and had also made fun of coffee. With a pleasant smile, Ragnar asked if he should kill them. The girl considered his dark proposal for a moment, her hand to her chin in thought, as the group prepared to move onward. Their path led them into the mouth of a vast, crystalline cave. Ragnar looked around at the glittering walls, identifying it as the dungeon. Almost immediately, they were beset by dangers. The bespectacled girl recounted with wide-eyed excitement how traps and monsters welcomed them one after another as her companions fought off a reptilian beast. Amid the chaos, a projectile flew silently towards the student with the ponytail. She cried out Ragnar's name in alarm as he instantly moved to shield her. He stopped the dart just millimeters from his face with an unseen force. He calmly reassured her that he was okay, explaining that a protective barrier is always active just a few millimeters around his body. He explains that while his skill is extraordinary, it has a critical weakness. If his magical power is depleted, the barrier can be penetrated. The technique, he recalls, originated long ago when he was close to death. Surrounded by monstrous beasts, the barrier was created from the desperate thought that if he could just cover his entire body, he would no longer be afraid. He has been putting it into practice ever since, to the point that he now maintains it subconsciously, allowing him to walk through a volley of arrows without a second thought. His companion with the ponytail bun asks if the brave territory is a frightening place. Alicia, however, dismisses the notion, insisting that it's actually a very nice place. Taking the opportunity, she suggests they all go home with Ragnar during the summer break for some training in mountains. The girl with the ponytail bun eagerly accepts the invitation. Ragnar enthusiastically dubs the plan the Brave-style boot camp, promising that with his training, everyone will become a user of chantless magic. The girl with glasses is overjoyed at the prospect of being trained, asking him to do his best, but pleading for him not to kill her. Ragnar confidently accepts. Alicia, meanwhile, observes the exchange, finding the whole situation rather mysterious. As they proceed deeper into the dungeon, she raises a question. Why do the monsters they defeat vanish in a mist instead of leaving behind corpses? She theorizes that the dungeon was created by ancient sages and that the soil from its walls might hold some answers. Intrigued by the mysteries, she prepares to chip away a sample, but her companion with the ponytail bun urgently tells her to wait. The warning comes too late. Her tool strikes the wall, and a massive, glowing magic circle erupts, throwing her into the air. Her friends can only watch in shock as Ragnar cries out her name. Mariana, as a swirling vortex of dark energy opens beneath them. Ragnar Brave shouts the name Mariana. The young woman with the ponytail bun looks on in alarm as the group plummets into the unknown abyss. They land with a thud in a cavernous, ancient ruin. Ragnar stands, having cushioned the fall for both Mariana and her bespectacled companion. The girl with glasses adjusts her spectacles, taking in the vine-choked columns and scattered skulls as she wonders aloud what this place is. He surveys their surroundings with a calm expression, Mariana looking on with uncertainty. He remarks that the scenery looks familiar, concluding that they are most likely on the lowest level of the dungeon. He continues his analysis, deducing that they must have triggered a teleportation trap. He seems unfazed, even a bit impressed by the wall, remarking that it's just as expected of the protagonist's path. Meanwhile, Mariana confiscates a pickaxe from her companion, who cries out in protest. Mariana firmly tells her that personal safety is the top priority, reminding her that if she dies, she'll never be able to drink coffee again. She then casually produces a coffee pot and cup, offering some to the bewildered girl with glasses. Mariana suggests it could be the last coffee of her life, prompting her companion to ask where on earth she got it from. The girl with glasses explains that it's said to be important to bring one's own food into a dungeon. Hearing this, Mariana accepts the logic with a sigh, and Ragna agrees to have some coffee as well. He sips the coffee, his expression growing serious. He explains the grim reality of their predicament. Falling to the bottom of a dungeon usually means it's game over. Help will not arrive, and it's impossible to eat the monsters. Mariana looks at her companions before calling out his name. Ragna turns toward her, a slight, confident smile on his face. She continues, pointing out that they never learned about a place like this in class and cannot call for help. Acknowledging the extreme danger, she asks him why he seems so calm and if he knows something they don't. He turns to Alicia, his expression calm and reassuring. He tells her she will be fine, promising there is something they could do once they've had a moment to catch their breath. His gaze drifts towards the vast, cavernous space before them, his thoughts turning to the magic circle that trapped them there. As she listens, Alicia's mind races. She recalls her designated role as the villainess in the story she knows, a part she was meant to play. Ragna's impossible knowledge and composure don't fit, and she begins to wonder who he truly is. Shaking off her thoughts, she follows as Ragna takes charge. He declares that with things as they are, they have no choice but to press onward, explaining that a pendant crucial to their strategy lies deeper within a dungeon. He speaks of the sacred relic, an artifact of immense power lying dormant in the dungeon's deepest chamber. It is an item essential for saving the country near the end of the story he knows. The student with glasses immediately understands its significance, noting that the relic is required for the saints' awakening and agreeing that they must retrieve it. Ragna then lays out the next step of the plan. He explains that they simply need to defeat a golem guarding a door ahead, and near it, they should find a teleportation circle that leads to the exit. The other students listen, one of them voicing her skepticism. Ragna confidently quotes the records he's familiar with, stating that defeating the guardian of the deepest level allows one to return. Internally, however, he admits to himself that there is more to the story that he cannot yet reveal. Following his lead, the group presses onward until they come upon a massive, ornate set of doors set into the cavern wall. The girl with the ponytail exclaims that it might be the exit, but Ragna's expression turns to one of confusion. He observes that the golem he expected to be guarding the door is nowhere to be found. Beyond the unguarded door, a monstrous, sludge-like golem with a single, glowing eye looms over Mariana, its form shifting and dripping in the cavern's dim light. From the doorway, Ragna's eyes widen in alarm as he sees her frozen in place. He shouts her name, a desperate warning cutting through the silence. He springs into action, snatching Mariana and leaping clear just as a torrent of fire engulfs the spot where she stood. Nearby, Patricia watches the blaze, a faint, sinister laugh escaping her lips. From within the inferno, a new, far more terrifying figure rises, a hulking, muscular demon wreathed in flame. The group can only stare up in disbelief at the creature's immense form. Mariana, now safely beside Ragna, breathes that its power is incredible, like the sun itself. He can only agree, his expression grim as he assesses the new enemy. He sternly instructs both young women to step back. He recognizes this entity, explaining that it is the very demon to whom Alicia Oldwood entrusted her soul in the original story, a being he wants no part of. The mention of Alicia's name makes Patricia flinch, her eyes wide with shock. Ragna notices her strange reaction and calls out to her, just as a memory surfaces in her mind, an announcer's voice declaring Patricia the winner of a match. This memory spirals into a darker one. She recalls being told she was a pathetic disgrace to her family for losing to a commoner. The cruel words echo, causing her to gasp as the past trauma overwhelms her. Seeing her lost in the painful recollection, Ragna moves swiftly, cupping her face in his hands to force her attention back to him. He calls out Alicia, trying to ground her in the present and assuring her that everything is all right. His touch breaks through her daze. She looks up at him, her face flushing with a mixture of confusion and surprise, letting out a small, uncertain sound. She watches as Ragna suddenly sprints away, calling out his name in confusion. He glances back at her and her companions, confirming they can use the Aqua Veil spell before ordering them to stay right where they are. He turns away, a grim smile on his face, and vows to kill the bastard. He charges towards the cackling fire demon, shouting that it will take responsibility for triggering his fiancée's trauma. In response, the creature unleashes a massive torrent of fire. Ragna notes that the attack seems to have shrunk as he swiftly dodges the searing wave. He continues to evade, gracefully sidestepping and leaping away from the demon's relentless, sweeping attacks of flame. Finding an opening, he leaps high and slashes clean through the demon's neck. From a distance, one of the girls celebrates the apparent decapitation, but Patricia cries out a warning, realizing with horror that the attack is coming from behind. The severed head plummets to the ground, dissolving into embers. The headless demon stands, seemingly confused, questioning what it was that fell. With a sharp, cracking sound, a new head violently snaps back into place atop its shoulders. He faces the regenerated beast, calmly surmising that such an attack is insufficient to kill it. The demon, wreathed in flame, seems to ponder the same question. Unfazed, he declares it's no problem and dares the creature to try and hit him as he launches himself into another attack. He stands confidently before the towering demon, dismissing its previous attack as pathetic and unworthy of even the lowest-ranked brave. He scoffs at its sloppy defense. The demon, meanwhile, seems to ponder if it was careless in its assault. In response to the taunt, the demon snarls that Ragna is one to talk as it swings its massive clawed hand. The attack engulfs him completely in a blinding torrent of energy. The demon seems momentarily confused by the result, but then roars for him to burn as it unleashes a wave of intense flames. Ragna remains stoic, seemingly unaffected. He looks up, a dark mask of magic now covering his eyes, and remarks that compared to this, the fire dragon's breath is much hotter. The demon recoils in shock, letting out a strangled cry. Unfazed by the inferno, he walks deeper into it, demanding to know who is inside the demon's form. He states it would be helpful if it told him. The nature of these beings is revealed. Demons do not originally possess a physical form. They are born from a human who has made a deal to serve their own desires, as shown in a vision of a skeletal demon making such a pact with a young woman. Understanding this, Ragna decides to find the source. He declares that he will know whose magic power it is if he touches it, and reaches his gloved hand toward the demon's chest. As his fingers make contact, the demon's body begins to violently contort and swell, letting out a scream of agony. Ragna's eyes widen in realization. It's self-destructing. The demon erupts in a cataclysmic explosion. Elsewhere, the two female students strain to maintain their protective barrier against the blast, one crying out that she can't hold on much longer. Their combined barrier strains against the concussive force of the explosion. In front of them, Ragna absorbs the brunt of the blast, shielding the two girls from the immediate impact as the ground beneath them cracks and shatters. He kneels in the settling dust, his uniform torn at the shoulder. The immediate danger has passed, but he grits his teeth in frustration, wondering who is controlling the demon. His companions hurry to his side. Alicia asks if he is okay, pointing out that he's been burned. Ragna dismisses it as a mere scratch, turning to the girl with the ponytail and bun to remind her of his promise to protect her, no matter what. She looks up at him, startled by his intensity. She manages a quiet "thank you," her cheeks flushing. Ragna observes her, glad to see that Alicia seems to have calmed down as well. His brief moment of relief passes as his expression suddenly hardens. Noticing the change, Alicia turns to him and asks what's wrong. He turns back to them with a confident smile, explaining that during the fight, he spotted a teleportation magic circle. He believes it will allow them to return upstairs, much to the surprise of the two girls. He leads them to the glowing sigil on the floor. Holding an ornate, jewel-like object behind his back, he tells them it's time to go. The three of them stand together on the magic circle as it activates, bathing them in a column of brilliant light. As the teleportation magic whisks him away, a realization solidifies in his mind. In that final moment, he had grasped the distinct sensation of the controller's magic power. The light vanishes, leaving the dungeon silent once more. The chaotic practice session is over. Ragna's final thought echoes with grim purpose: find a main body behind the demon. He vows that he will definitely kill them. In an opulent hall, Jalasis Grand Ignite doubles over coughing. He is the one who has been manipulating the dungeon training from behind the scenes. Looking around in disgust, he mutters about how filthy everything is. Appearing in the doorway, Patricia Kindred looks down on him with disdain, calling him pathetic. As he looks up, murmuring her name, she coldly asks if he succeeded in recovering the sacred artifact. Her question is met with a sudden burst of violence. She strikes Jalasis across the back, shouting that he is an idiot. Stunned, he can only apologize, admitting that he failed. Her assault continues as she kicks him while he lies on the floor. She furiously questions how he could fail, even when possessed by a demon. All he can do is repeat his apologies. He tries to explain, stating that he was interrupted. The reason for his failure, he reveals with a distressed expression, was Ragna Brave. He continues, dismissing Ragna as a mere frontier noble who should have disappeared as the story progressed. Patricia clicks her tongue in irritation, repeating the term mob noble with contempt. She clutches her head, distraught. Her plan to frame Alicia as the villainess has completely collapsed, and she realizes it is entirely Ragna's fault. Biting her thumb in agitation, she laments that the Edward route is no longer an option and that her former followers are useless, despite her blackmailing their families. As she spirals, Jalasis notices her hand, pointing out that she is bleeding. She glares at him, cutting him off with a sharp command to shut up. Then, her expression unreadable, she tells him to go ahead and take off his clothes. Her tone softens slightly as she looks toward the nearby sofa. Jalasis kneels, his shirt removed to reveal a back covered in wounds. As she asked where he was injured, she placed her hands upon his chest, a soft light glowing as she began to heal his wounds. His injuries closing, Jalasis quietly offered her a ring. As she worked, her thoughts turned to his attacker. She realized the man was a reincarnator, the same as her, and was stunned at his power. She couldn't comprehend how he had managed to take a head in a single blow. She reasoned, however, that if his circumstances were similar to her own, then his actions were perhaps unavoidable. The fact that he had to resort to self-destruction, sacrificing his entire body, suggested a desperate situation. She wondered what would come next. Her healing complete, she gently patted the now-dressed Jalasis on the head. She remarked that it was a flashy defeat, but nonetheless praised him, telling him he did a great job. He looked up at her, his face flushed, and stammered his thanks before moving to embrace her tightly. As he held her, she looked down at him, a soft expression on her face as she murmured his name. She held him close, calling him a crybaby and a winner, but also her adorable little brother. She then revealed a profound secret. He, like her, was a rare being who had carried a demon within him since the day he was born. Pulling back just enough to look at him, she offered a moment of simple comfort, telling him that for right now, it was okay for her to simply be his big sister. He leaned into her again, his voice trembling as he confessed the truth of his defeat. The man was too strong, he admitted. He couldn't possibly beat him. His words of defeat caused her gentle expression to vanish, replaced by a cold, hard look. Internally, she noted with disdain that he was still the same crybaby he had always been. The moment of comfort was over. Jalasis now knelt on the floor before her as she stood over him. Her demeanor completely changed. With an air of authority, she demanded to know what it was that he wanted. Her question hangs in the air, demanding an answer. Jalasis's eyes widen as he stammers, trying to grasp what it is he truly desires. He clutches his head, his composure shattering as the truth erupts from him. He wants Alicia. His thoughts spiral into a dark obsession. To possess her, even if it means destroying her, to keep her chained so they could be together forever. Patricia listens, her expression unreadable. She calmly points out the logical next step of his desire. Since Alicia currently belongs to someone else, he would have to kill that person to take her. Jalasis falls silent, the grim reality of her words sinking in. She then places a hand on his cheek, her voice steady and reassuring. She tells him that he is special, and that if he can find the will to keep going, he should believe in her. Before he can respond, she leans in and presses her lips against his, initiating a deep and unexpected kiss. The kiss deepens, a transfer of more than just affection. As they part, Jalasis feels a sudden, overwhelming surge of magical power coursing through his body. He staggers back, astonished, while Patricia watches him silently. He thanks her, vowing to do his best and win next time. He looks up, confused, as Patricia addresses him again. She tells him that, in a way, he has already won. She winks playfully, a stark contrast to her earlier intensity. She points out that he was just embraced and kissed by a cute girl, a victory in its own right. Jalasis stares, utterly dumbfounded by her logic. She turns and begins walking toward the grand school building in the distance, remarking that the monkey-brained students live for that kind of social victory. She encourages him to go back and see for himself. Her gaze sweeps across the courtyard, passing over Jalasis, who stands just behind her, before it settles on a single figure. Her mind registers the name with a cold clarity, Ragna Velbrae. She turns away, her hand tightening on the window frame as she stares outside. She internally questions what his goal is in this scenario, on this stage. Though she doesn't know why he has appeared, she makes a silent, chilling vow. If he gets in her way, she will show no mercy. Her expression hardens into a mask of pure resolve. She scorns this world, vowing that she will carve her own will into fate, into the very fabric of the world itself. A curse and a powerful determination dwell within her eyes. She has made her choice. The answer she chose is destruction. The recent turmoil began with a chaotic week of dungeon training, where students ventured into the dark maw of a cavern carved into a sheer rock face. Yet, as if that ordeal had never happened, the next practical training session began at a grand, sun-drenched swimming pool adjacent to the main academy building. Ragna Brave observed the scene, internally questioning the very existence of a pool in this setting. He understood the reason. This was the world of an Otome game, where a sudden swimsuit event was a predictable development. Across the water, Patricia Kindred was flanked by Jalasis Grand Ignite and another male student, both vying for her attention as Ragna watched from a distance. Flustered, Patricia admitted that she was not a good swimmer and found the water scary. After sputtering to the surface, Jalasis quickly reassured her, promising to stay right by her side, while the other young man also offered his help. Watching this from the poolside, Ragna's expression soured. He recognized this as the kind of reward event that follows a difficult battle, but the sight of Patricia surrounded by others did not make him happy. His thoughts were interrupted when Mariana approached, asking why he wasn't swimming. Ragna turned, slightly surprised to see her there. She smiled, suggesting they have some tea by the poolside instead, remarking that it was a perfect day for magic. Her attention was then caught by a distant call, and she asked Ragna if he was the one being summoned. When he didn't respond, she mused that the only people who ever called for her were Alicia and Ragna. Her gaze then shifted to a pair of female students nearby. They were discussing her, noting that Mariana is a commoner who has avoided drawing much hate, likely because she is aware of her social status and acts accordingly. Mariana overheard their words, her expression becoming unreadable. By the poolside, Patricia Kindred voiced her concern, wondering aloud where Alicia might be. As she spoke, Ragna Brave's hand gently covered her own. Nearby, another student with clips in her hair blushed, offering thanks to an unseen person and reassuring them that they were worrying too much. Meanwhile, Mariana relaxed in the water, practicing her magic. She addressed Ragna, telling him not to worry, that Alicia would surely be fine. For now, she added, she could simply stay by his side. Her words were cut short as a large wave of water suddenly crashed directly into her face. In response to the commotion, Ragna, now seated at the edge of the pool, warned her that it was dangerous and she should stay away. He muttered under his breath, calling someone a wasteland bastard. Blinded and flustered, Mariana frantically searched for her lost glasses. His irritation was fueled by the whispers he perceived from other students. They spoke of the terrifying scars on his body, warning each other that getting too close would result in a curse, and noting how friendly he had become with Mariana. The gossip left him sitting alone, consumed by a hopeless thought. At this rate, he would never make any friends. He desperately wondered if there was anyone out there he could truly connect with. As this thought crossed his mind, a voice from behind remarked on his struggles. The speaker, Jalasis Granite Knight, moved to sit down on the bench beside the still pensive Ragna. He turned, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of his classmate. A short distance away, another student with reddish hair watched the encounter unfold. He could only stammer out Jalasis's name in disbelief. Jalasis, seemingly unfazed, gestured calmly and told him to have a seat. He stood by the bustling poolside, the sounds of splashing and chatter filling the air, yet he remained apart from it all. This was his first conversation with a capture target. He realized, a thought that did little to calm his nerves. Across from him, Jalasis was having his own internal struggle, admitting to himself that it was no use. He had no idea what the other boy was thinking. Breaking the tense silence, Ragna asked why Jalasis had started talking to him, questioning if he shouldn't be joining the others in the water. Jalasis turned his back to him, gazing out at the pool as he confessed, "I'm not good with it." His attention then snapped back to Ragna, his focus shifting entirely. More importantly, Jalasis began, his eyes scanning Ragna's torso. "You've got an amazing body, huh?" He pointed toward a prominent scar on Ragna's back, asking where he had gotten such a wound. Ragna, panting slightly, explained it was from the Freep territory, all the while wishing he had worn something to cover it. The thought of his scars brought an image of Alicia to his mind. He resolved that as long as she wasn't hiding her own wounds, he could be fine with his as well. Jalasis was impressed, noting that Freep was a territory that had been at war with a neighboring country for a long time. He praised Ragna's strength and well-trained physique, a compliment Ragna quickly deflected. Catching his breath, Ragna managed a small smile. "Yeah, we both have our struggles," he admitted. Jalasis agreed, suggesting his own were a result of his upbringing and the way he was taught. The entire exchange left Ragna beet red and sweating, his mind screaming at the sheer awkwardness of it all. He could almost see Seabass materializing behind him, equally flustered. He is broken from his thoughts when Jalasis calls out to him. Ragna turns, a bead of sweat on his temple, looking utterly perplexed. Jalasis, however, stares back with an unervingly intense, unblinking gaze. Jalasis, sitting beside a shirtless Ragna Brave, breaks the silence with an unexpected question, asking if he has ever held hands with someone. Ragna is taken aback, his expression one of pure confusion. The abruptness of the query leaves him flustered. He realizes Jalasis has completely disregarded the natural flow of their interaction, pushing forward with his own agenda. There is no doubt in Ragna's mind. This is a clear sign of something specific. He recognizes it as Jalasis's emotional phase, a distinct change in behavior that manifests after a certain threshold, 18 flags, has been reached. Jalasis's expression is intense, his focus unwavering. Ragna internally questions why this is happening to him, convinced it must be some kind of glitch in the expected sequence of events. He recalls how Jalasis, once distant from everyone, began showing an unusual interest in the protagonist, relentlessly asking questions. As if sensing his confusion, Jalasis turns to him and states plainly that he simply became curious about Ragna himself. The directness of the statement strikes Ragna with the force of a relationship advancement voice line, leaving him momentarily stunned. A sense of alarm grips Ragna, his muscles tensing. He believes this is a bad development. An image flashes through his mind of Jalasis cornering Patricia, her own expression filled with anxiety as she worries he might make an unwanted advance. Determined to prevent such a scenario, he prepares to intervene directly. He announces his intention to use a special move, the Brave-style rejection punch. Jalasis's eye widens, caught off guard by the sudden declaration. But before he could deliver the blow, Jalasis cuts him off with another pointed question, demanding to know what Ragna likes about Alicia. The query stops Ragna in his tracks, his fists still clenched but his attack halted. Once again, Ragna is left bewildered, only able to utter a confused, "huh?" In response, Jalasis looks down, his own expression unreadable as he questions Ragna's behavior, his sentence trailing off. He then looks up, a subtle, knowing smirk playing on his lips. He leans in closer and makes a cryptic statement. Ragna is not supposed to be here yet. He stared intently at Ragna, a silent challenge passing between them by the poolside. As he turned his head, a subtle pressure emanated from him. Ragna watched, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. processing the unspoken confrontation. He then revealed a startling piece of knowledge, stating that he knew it was Ragna who had been in the deepest part of the dungeon before. Ragna, taken aback, questioned his purpose for appearing so openly in broad daylight. Jalacis's response was direct. It was a declaration of war, proclaiming that he would not allow Ragna to have Alicia. His declaration was cut short by a cheerful voice from the pool. Patricia Kindred, splashing in the water with other students, waved and called out to Jalacis, completely unaware of the tense atmosphere. She swam to the edge, her expression bright as she noted that Jalacis wasn't good with water and offered to practice together. As Ragna looked on, Jalacis accepted her invitation. Before joining her, he turned back to Ragna with a smirk, correctly surmising that Ragna had never kissed anyone. He then admitted his own loss from their other day's encounter, declaring their rivalry was now tied 1-1. Ragna could only stare silently at the scene in the pool. Sometime later, the students began to emerge from the water, tired from their swim. One of them suggested they go relax in the shade. Ragna remained seated, his hand clenched into a fist as he grappled with his thoughts. His turmoil was mirrored by a commotion nearby, as other male students began to argue, demanding why one of them was still trying to pursue a certain girl. He couldn't understand it. He wondered why Jalacis, who seemed to be part of Patricia's group of admirers, was now trying to pursue Alicia. The situation made no sense. He seethed with internal rage, imagining bringing Onyx to wipe out his enemies entirely. Yet a more rational part of his mind desperately urged him to stop. His dark thoughts were cut short by a voice. Patricia Kindred stood before him in a simple swimsuit, asking what sort of dangerous things he was muttering to himself. Her question conjured a violent image in his mind. A monstrous beast thrashing within a heavy cage, its handlers struggling to keep it contained. The vision faded. Patricia, sensing his intensity, asked if someone had told him to restrain himself. He denied it, stating grimly that there was simply someone he wanted to kill. She looked at him with concern, noting that she'd heard about a lot of injuries coming from his class lately. Ragna turned away, offering only a strained laugh in response. Continuing, she warned that his position, and that of his allies, would only worsen if he continued on such a reckless rampage. She then held out a small, buckled collar. He looked down at it and quietly agreed to wear it for the day. His immediate acceptance seemed to fluster Patricia, who stammered that it wasn't as if anyone was watching or that he was being forced. With the collar fastened around his neck, he spoke as if to an unseen Jalacis. He declared that this was the difference that separated them. Alicia was not his possession. He belonged to her. His thought remained unfinished as a frantic voice called out. A young woman with glasses perched on her head rushed past, desperately asking if anyone had seen her glasses while calling for Alicia. Observing from a distance, Jalacis watched the exchange. He couldn't believe they had made the first move. He wondered if, by retrieving the sacred relic, they had discovered that he and Ragna were the same kind of existence. Elsewhere, Ragna stood alone, the new collar resting against his skin. A faint, unexpected warmth emanated from it, drawing his attention as a light blush dusted his cheeks. This feeling solidified his resolve. He vowed to himself that he would need to stay sharp to protect the two of them. Whether in the shadows or in the light, he would be their shield. On a bright day at the academy, Alicia Oldwood shields her eyes from the sun, musing that the new summer uniform was an excellent societal invention. Patricia Kindred approaches, asking what she is doing. Alicia explains she is looking for Ragna, but he seems to vanish every time she searches for him. As Patricia watches, a blush spreads across Alicia's face as she quietly admits she only wanted to have lunch with him. Elsewhere, Patricia and Mariana are chatting. Patricia sighs, lamenting that she wants to spend the upcoming summer vacation with the boy she likes. Nearby, Ragna overhears their conversation. He clenches his hands, realizing that the impending holiday could present a serious problem for him. He is startled from his thoughts by Mariana, who has appeared before him asking if he is thinking about something. Ragna addresses her, dismissing it as nothing important and apologizing for unintentionally listening in. He then observes that her magic is leaking out dangerously before she mentions that Alicia had been looking for him. He explains that he was merely tracking the magic of Alicia's group. Mariana responds with a deadpan expression, stating that she finds such an action unethical. He falls silent, his gaze fixed and thoughtful. His mind drifts to Jalacis. He reflects that while he could fight him on a battlefield without issue, applying that same competitive spirit to romance feels cowardly. A memory surfaces of Jalacis telling him he shouldn't be there. Returning to the present, he turns to Mariana and asks a blunt question. Is it common during the summer for men and women to advance their relationships, perhaps through a kiss or something similar? Mariana puffs her cheeks out, completely flabbergasted. She looks down, flustered, telling him not to ask her such things. With a blush, she quietly adds that for her, not yet. Her embarrassed admission captures the intense, almost aggressive, attention of Ragna and the other boys in the vicinity, who all turn to stare at her. He was taken aback when Mariana, with a slight cough and a blush, correctly guessed his fear, that he was worried someone might try to steal Alicia away. He countered, questioning who would even attempt to steal a woman who was already engaged and living with her partner. Normally, he reasoned, no one would do such a thing, though his mind conjured images of the abnormal individuals he truly feared. He tried to downplay it as a mere routine investigation, just a precaution. Unconvinced, Mariana immediately turned, declaring she would tell Alicia everything. forcing him to quickly tell her to calm down. She turned back, her expression serious. If he was so worried, she asked, then why didn't he just stay with Alicia? She pointed out that he always disappears during breaks and is never by her side. His expression grew somber as he explained his reasoning. He didn't want to take up her time, and he worried that his presence would make her a target for criticism. Her eyes widened in understanding. So that was why he avoided her. She realized that while he might not care about the gossip, Alicia might, and she herself certainly cared. She then turned to face him with newfound resolve, calling his name. He looked over, surprised by her sudden shift in tone. She spoke with sudden force, her face flushed with determination. She instructed him to come to the library after class that day, declaring that they would do their vacation homework together. He hesitated, uncertain. As another student muttered about how annoying it was to see them together, Mariana pressed on, assuring him that she knew of a quiet, discreet place where they wouldn't be bothered. His gaze drifted, and he fell into thought. Mariana's inner voice noted that Ragnar worried and tried to be careful, but Alicia noticed his distance. And though it made her sad, she never said a word. He listened, flustered, as Mariana declared that if he and Patricia were just going to keep their distance while constantly thinking about each other, it would be better for them to be stuck together 24 hours a day. The very thought of their situation, she added, was frustrating. She then announced her intention to speak with Alicia herself, promising to frame it positively. With a cheerful, "See you later," she turned and walked away, leaving him to ponder her words. He watched her go, a thought crossing his mind. Such authority was exactly what one would expect from her. Later, inside the vast and silent school library, rows of bookshelves stood under the soft glow of hanging lamps. He approached a table where Patricia was already seated, apologizing for his tardiness. A flustered Patricia insisted that she had only just arrived herself. Nearby, Mariana gave a subtle, approving gesture. Her silent approval quickly turned to direct action as she physically pushed the protesting Ragnar into the chair beside Patricia, firmly telling him to sit. Forced into the seat, he glanced towards Patricia. Mariana, still standing behind him, feigned an apology but thanked him for his consideration, noting how obvious it was. She continued to explain her meddling, pointing out the strange contradiction of them going on dates during the weekend only to remain distant from each other at school. In response to the observation, Patricia quietly asserted that they simply have their own rhythm, her gaze fixed on her work. Her quiet demeanor then shifted. With a determined blush, she looked directly at Ragnar and instructed him to sit beside her so they could finish their assignment. As he reeled from her directness, Seabass and a maid appeared, carrying a towering stack of books, with a butler remarking that taking them all to the brave territory would be chaotic. As the study session begins, Ragnar observes that they are short-staffed and suggests they might need some extra help. Beside him, Mariana looks flustered, quietly wondering if her presence is a hindrance, though she quickly assures him that it is not. The study session is in full swing, with the three of them gathered around a large table. Full of energy, Mariana suggests that besides their studies, they can also practice magic together later. Her mind then shifts to another topic, and she asks Ragnar what they should bring back as a souvenir. He thoughtfully suggests coffee beans. His suggestion sparks a brilliant idea. Mariana's expression brightens as she declares her desire for everyone to experience the same emotion she felt drinking coffee at her family's cafe. Announcing that her cafeteria has plenty of coffee in stock, she enthusiastically volunteers to bring it for everyone, telling them to leave it to her. Her grand offer brings the conversation back to logistics. Patricia, looking up from her book, asks Mariana if her family's cafeteria truly has enough to spare. She admits, with a hint of embarrassment, that she had actually over-purchased coffee beans before starting at the academy. Now, she's finding it difficult to sell the surplus by only working on weekends. Hearing her plight, Patricia looks from a hopeful Mariana to Ragnar, then confirms that they will gladly accept her offer of help. Ragnar then turns to Mariana with a proposal of his own, asking if she would be willing to teach her valuable coffee-making techniques to the Brave family in return. Her face lights up with a happy smile. She humbly claims she isn't an expert, but promises to try her best. The thought of her coffee being served at the Brave estate brings to mind a warm reception, with the staff praising its exceptional flavor and welcoming her as a friend of Alicia's. With the plan settled, Ragnar gets up to retrieve some materials. He asks if they need anything, but is met with a polite refusal and a thank you. He stands within the Grand Academy library, having finally found what he was looking for. His expression is focused, his hands tucked into his pockets as he takes in his surroundings. A sudden voice cuts through the quiet, drawing his attention. He turns to see a young man kneeling before Patricia Kindred, who laughs and exclaims that his gesture tickles. He instantly recognizes the scene from the game's lore. He identifies the man as Castor von Pentagram, son of a family that serves the kingdom, and Patricia as the imposter heroine. The interaction grows stranger as Castor embraces Patricia, calling her his holy mother and asking her to pat his head. She obliges, calling him a good boy and praising his secret efforts that make her proud. Ragnar looks on, utterly dumbfounded. His mind reels at the absurdity. Montag, mother, he thinks, unable to believe what he is witnessing. This simply cannot be real. He frantically tries to reconcile this with his knowledge of the game. In the original story, Castor was a serious and responsible character. There was never any indication of this bizarre dynamic. This unexpected development forces him to reconsider Patricia's motives. He recalls her speaking with Prince Edward and now wonders if she has changed her target. A memory surfaces of Castor speaking earnestly to Patricia, his gaze intense as he asked her to wait for him. His promise was clear. He would enter the student council in the next election and then nominate her. He remembers Castor's moment of doubt, questioning if a commoner could succeed. Patricia had gently reassured him, saying that of course he could, because she knew his talent better than anyone. He continued to process the memory of their conversation. Patricia had told Castor that ever since they met while working at a trading company, he had been on her mind. She expressed surprise, stating she never imagined they would meet again at the academy. In that same memory, Castor confronted Prince Edward directly. He acknowledged that Edward seemed predestined for Patricia, but asserted his own claim, reminding the prince that he had met her first. With determination, Castor pleaded for her to choose him instead. Following his plea, Patricia leaned in and kissed Castor. After a moment, she pulled back slightly and asked if he was satisfied now, casually adding that she had done the same with Edward. He responded with a simple thank you, a faint smile on his lips. Castor claimed that now he could finally sleep peacefully. With that, the memory concluded as Castor turned and walked away into the night. Back in the present, Ragnar sat hidden, his mind reeling. He realized that Patricia had been close to Castor since they were children. The thought solidified in his mind. She was an incredibly cunning girl. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice beside him. It was Patricia. She coolly remarked on his lack of manners for spying on someone's kiss, then commented on the impossible web of manipulation he was weaving.